Welcome to the Mike Miller Show.
Happy Friday. Jessica, happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
This is the Mike Miller Show. Fridays are always fun. But in fact, this Friday is going to be a good friend of mine. Was on my old show quite a bit. Jennifer Burke. She is co-founder, editor-in-chief of The Politistick, also co-founder of The Liberty Daily, and a good conservative, good Tea Party conservative. So always look forward to talking to Jennifer. She's going to be on at the bottom of the hour. Jessica, a lot of serious stuff to get into today, obviously, but I have, because it's Friday, I'd like to start off with something a little bit light. I have a Florida guy story for you.
Okay.
Yeah, this is actually a Florida gal, but the guy's involved as well. This woman was incensed on Mother's Day at her husband. She beat his ass for bringing home the wrong flowers and candy.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, like he called 911.
Okay. And
Yeah, well, she started throwing cups and stuff around, and she was not really happy with. I don't know, did she tell him which flowers and candy to get? But regardless, it was wrong. So she was throwing stuff at him. She punched him. She started beating him with a hanger, and then he called the police, and so she got arrested for that.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That is, that wasn't Florida.
Yeah, this Florida
Was
guy.
it Polk County?
Huh?
Was it Polk County?
What's the name of the county?
Polk?
Polk. Is that like Florida guy headquarters, like the capital of Florida guy land?
It tends to be, yes. And Okeechobee, like around those areas for some reason.
So is that like
kind
South
of
Central
stuff.
Florida or like kind of mid Central?
Polk County is South Central, and then Okeechobee is like towards, well, it's like 2 hours from Miami.
Okay.
Yeah.
She looks rough. Looks like he didn't get a blow in. So, but anyway, we we love Florida guy. So we will we're going to accumulate those things. We used to do a thing on the old show, Jessica and I, on Fridays called
And we will again.
Life on Planet Looney Tunes.
Yes.
And we just have to accumulate some stuff. So we'll have to get that going again because that's always fun. I mean, we talk about a lot of serious stuff and political stuff and whatever have you. Before we get into the story of the day, and the story of the day is the Obama administration, I don't want to call it a directive. Let's say it's a strong suggestion to the nation's public schools as it relates to, you guessed it, the whole transgender bathroom thing. We're going to get into that. But man, you saw my threads last night, right? When people were just like chewing me up.
I did, and I do find it interesting that now you're like a Trump supporter.
I'm not, see that.
Well, I know, but that's what you're being accused
I know,
of.
therein lies the deal. I have been an avid Ted Cruz supporter. You look at the field. Would he have been my first choice had I been able to pick anyone that wasn't in the race? Maybe not. But it is what it is, or it was what it was. Ted Cruz most exemplified what I believe, and hopefully vice versa. But no. So I was, strong Ted guy, strong endorser. Beat up on Trump fan a little bit along the way. We talked about this Wednesday, and I lost Trump supporters along the way, and now that I'm facing the reality of Trump is going to be the nominee, and I'm simply saying to people, look, here's the cards we were dealt. Let's give it a shot. Let's roll the dice. I mean, the Cruz people last night were more vicious to me almost. Yeah, I would say as much as the Trump supporters have been for months. Mm-hmm. So I spent, up until Trump is the presumptive nominee, I was ticking off Trump supporters, and they were unfriending me, defriending. What do you say? I say unfriending.
Unfriending, I think.
That's what I say. And now the last few days, I mean, I must have lost 15 Cruz people last night. And, I get called every name in the book behind the scenes and stuff. So So yeah, that was fun. And you make the most innocuous comments
I just
and
think
get
it's.
caught.
I mean, I just find it funny how I don't support anybody that fervently that but you get it. You get it from everybody.
I do. And which on one hand, it makes you think, well, I must be doing something right because if I'm getting attacked from both sides,
Uh-huh.
right?
Mhm.
But I even, man, even this, okay, I said, this was when I was really getting frustrated. This was later on. And I couldn't even like people coming at me like, Mike, how you going to let people say that stuff about, I couldn't even read all the comments coming on the various threads, let alone respond to them. So, but okay, so this was one of the last comments I put up. And I said, okay, please stop with the I won't vote for the lesser of two evil stuff. I get it, but it's not applicable here. And I don't think it is. Because in my mind, the old axiom, don't choose the lesser of two evils, suggests that if you don't choose one of those, then you get neither, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, but in a presidential election, that's not the case. You're going to get one of the two. Whether you
Mhm.
participate or not, you're going to get one of the two. So that didn't go over very well.
No, it
Um,
doesn't. And then everybody's. I actually tried. I mean, our mutual friend, who is a never Trump person. I tried. I was like, okay, well, you're gonna get Hillary, and they're like, oh, well, I'm gonna vote my conscience, and I'm like, okay,
well,
well,
but see that the Hillary
congratulations.
thing, they don't care because they come back, well, Trump or Hillary, it's the same thing. Okay,
Mhm.
maybe so, maybe not. But again, my position is, look, here's one thing that you do know, and
Mhm.
I think this is where I don't know if you know who Eugene is on the site. He's a
Mm-mm.
pretty sharp guy to DC, but he and I were kind of tag teaming people, and um, irrespective of whether you think that Trump is a closet Democrat or whatever have you, and I've hammered him for that for months myself,
Mhm.
but it comes down, in my opinion, to Supreme Court justices. We
Yeah.
don't know. That's true. We do not know if Donald Trump becomes president of the United States and he has one or several or multiple opportunities to nominate a justice to the court. We don't know who he'll nominate. Now, he has said and reiterated this week that he will put together a list. In fact, he spoke with Paul Ryan about it, of potential folks from whom he would choose when spots became available. Will he do it? He says he will. But what we do know, people, is the type of justice that Hillary Clinton would nominate.
Mhm.
And to me, you can go back and forth on everything else. But I think that the Supreme Court argument makes the best case for hold your nose, and I even hate to say it out loud, but hold your nose and vote for Donald Trump.
Mhm.
And I don't know what else to say. So anyway, I was just getting the hell beat out of me last night. But for some reason, every once in a while, like I normally don't do that. I usually will put something on there and then I'll just let that feeding frenzy go. And then I go away and I come back and look at comments. But for some reason last night, I had to participate just a little bit. So anyway, it's draining.
Mhm.
Um, okay, so speaking of draining, have you you're aware, I'm guessing, that this letter was sent to every public school corporation in the country from the Obama administration today?
Yeah, I'm aware of the letter.
Yeah. Um, you know what? It is a letter. It is not an executive order. It's not even a directive. It's a threat
Mhm.
because it's a suggestion, if you will, of guidelines, and it includes the not so veiled threat that if you don't comply, then you may be subject to lawsuits and denial of federal funding. So this right now, when you look at, and I'm going to talk to Jennifer about this at the bottom of the hour, but this makes the North Carolina thing, I think, just in terms of the outrage, because there's outrage on the other side now. North Carolina pales in comparison because we're screwing with people's kids now across the country. This guy is not king, and it's It's unbelievable. I mean, I think it's just unbelievable. So this letter goes out, and a couple of different comments here. I put this up as a post on IJ Review earlier today, but Loretta Lynch, we all love Attorney General Loretta Lynch. She issued a statement. She said in part, quote, "There is no room in our schools for discrimination of any kind, including discrimination against transgender students on the basis of their sex."
Oh, I did see that video, yeah.
The same thing with the North Carolina deal. And again, it's not an order. It does not have the force of law. But again, if you don't comply, lawsuits, loss of federal aid. Is a little quote from Fox that I included in my article. Officials say the letter is meant to clarify expectations of school districts that receive funding from the federal government. Educators have been seeking guidance on how to comply with Title IX. You can hear a lot about Title IX today, which prohibits, this is the part that I just don't connect these dots. Title IX, which prohibits sex discrimination in educational programs and activities that receive federal funding. Prohibits sex discrimination in educational programs and activities. To me, we're talking bodily function here. We're not talking education or programs or activities.
Well, I think they're talking about now the locker rooms when you get into like the middle schools and stuff.
Yeah, locker rooms as well. So, what if I want to? If I want to walk in the girls' locker room and take a shower, and I self-identify as transgender, I should be able to do that?
That one is a little bit, to me, more dicier.
Well, sure, but then
it's
a slippery slope. Then, so
is.
where's the line drawn? Here's Education Secretary John King, quote, "No student should ever have to go through the experience of feeling unwelcome at school. We must ensure that our young people know that whoever they are or wherever they come from, they have the opportunity to get a great education in an environment free from discrimination, harassment, and violence." Okay, I'm sorry, but I don't see how that pertains to a couple of curious junior high school students going, "Wait, no, you're kidding, right? If we want to, we can go to the girl." Okay. 3, 2, 1. Here we are. I mean, I just find it incredible. And
I did have a
go ahead.
I
Go
did
ahead.
have a transgender classmate who used to use the boys' bathroom and stuff, but still had to use the women's locker room just because of the shower situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's if they made stalls the way that they make them, like for the bathrooms, maybe that would help the situation. I don't know. It's crazy.
If you read into this thing, the whole Title IX thing, and I'm reading a short quote here from another site, "There is no obligation for a student to present a specific medical diagnosis or identification documents that reflect his or her gender identity, and equal access must be given to transgender students, even in instances," listen to this part, "of course, even in instances when it makes others uncomfortable, according to the directive." And again, to reiterate that, the guidance in the letter says, as is consistently recognized in civil rights cases, the desire to accommodate others' discomfort cannot justify a policy that singles out and disadvantages a particular class of students. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's that. Like I said, I think they're gonna have to make stalls. They really are. If they're gonna have to, if this is gonna become a thing, which it looks like it is.
It's going to come. It's becoming a big thing now.
Yes.
Like I said, this makes the North Carolina situation pale in comparison, and
It's national now.
and again, it's going down into the grade schools, in schools, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this is going to be huge. This will go to the Supreme Court. Texas is on fire. The Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. We'll wait and talk about him with Jennifer because she's from Texas. But these people are completely their hair on fire, and I think rightly so. So we'll see. And you and I talked on Wednesday about the fact that, well, sure, there have been unisex bathrooms forever, right?
Yes.
Somebody suggested this morning, why can't we have a, if you will, whatever you are, bathroom, call it transgender bathroom, call it whatever. You can't do that either because it
You
singles
can't.
out.
It's singling out. Yeah.
So it's just like you'd have to have a single bathroom for everybody in the school. That's the only way you could get away with that. So it's just a complete mess, and the emotions and stuff are just going to be out of control. So we'll talk more about that with
Who would have thought bathrooms would be so like I never saw this coming.
you know, I
It's such a
I
divisive
don't know that
issue,
I
a
did either,
bathroom.
but are you surprised?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I never thought that, like, cause I mean, even on TV, I mean, Ally McBeal was on what in the late '90s,
Yeah.
and they had the unisex bathroom. I just never even
But see,
occurred to me
unisex is
that
by
this would be
choice.
a bathroom.
Like if a woman wants to go into a unisex bathroom, she has the expectation that she may meet a man coming in or going out.
Well, I'm just, but my point is that like I
That it
just
was no
didn't
big
think
deal
it was
back
an
then.
issue. Yeah, I didn't even think it was an issue back then, and now all of a sudden it's a huge issue, and I'm like, wow, that's surprising, surprising thing.
To me, it's somebody said on my Facebook page, was it this morning, maybe when I cross posted the IJR article, but it's intolerance masquerading as tolerance. And it's the intolerance is directed at people who don't accept. It's just like when the Supreme Court, um, the ruling making same-sex marriage legal in every state, right?
Hmm.
That wasn't good enough. Then the next step was, well, we want to force Christian churches to marry us if we want them to.
See, and that's the thing. It's like that's my problem is that because I agree with marriage equality, but
I do too. I do
I
too.
do not I do not agree with forcing people to like or churches or anything. Those are private institutions to
That's
like force them into like doing it if they don't want to. I mean, and also I don't understand the whole point of that is that I don't understand why would you want to make somebody do that? They're not. I mean, I mean, how is that going to be good for you? I just don't get it.
well, it's again. I think as the one of my Facebook friends says, it's intolerance masquerading as tolerance. It's to stick it in your face. And I believe that. And be it the wedding cake or be it the pizza for the reception, or in this case the bathrooms. And if they could, the next step will be private schools. This is a public school
Correct.
situation today. Churches are private. It's dare I say cancerous. But it's going to continue. This is progressivism at its finest, and I think that the fuse has been lit when you start this stuff. And again, Obama does not rule by decree. I predict. I'm not a lawyer and I don't even play one on the radio, but that this is, oh man, it's overreach. But we've heard that term as it relates to him in the past.
It doesn't matter because people just let it happen. I
Well, they
mean,
do. It's
that's
it's
what it
the old,
is.
you know what? And again, this is kind of goofy, but the old how to eat an elephant one bite at a time, and that's exactly what the left has done to this country to an extent.
Yeah.
Um, and very appropriate because the elephant happens to represent the Republican Party and/or used to be synonymous with conservatism. But how do you eat conservatives one bite at a time? And I think that's what's going on. So anyway, we'll talk more about that with Jennifer. All right, my hair's on fire a little bit. Let's do something a little light.
Okay.
I sent you a clip.
Yes.
You know who this guy is? PJ O'Rourke.
I do not know who this is.
He's been around forever. He's conservative author. He's a humorist, if you will. The guy is hilarious. He was on PBS over the weekend. This is about a minute, just over a minute. But PJ O'Rourke on the PBS show Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me.
I love that show.
I said PBS, NPR. It's
NPR,
NPR.
yeah.
It's a radio. Yeah, yeah. He made an endorsement, and let's listen to who PJ O'Rourke endorsed and why.
Well, Peter, I have a little announcement to
Yes,
make.
what is your announcement?
Yeah, I have a little announcement to make. I mean, my whole purpose in life basically is to offend everyone who listens to NPR. To take, no matter what position they take on anything, like I'm on the other side of it, I'm voting for Hillary.
What?
I am endorsing Hillary. And all her lies and all her empty promises. I am endorsing Hillary. It's the second worst thing that could happen to this country, but she's way behind in second place. I mean, she's wrong about absolutely everything, but she's wrong within normal parameters.
That is a ringing endorsement.
I tell you.
I want to hear that.
Dorothy's-
I want to hear that on TV, and then I want to hear Hillary Clinton say, "I'm Hillary Clinton," and
I'll take it. Wow. I mean, this man just can't be president of the. They got this button, it's in a briefcase. He's gonna find it.
yeah, they can't hide it. It's going to be like a teenager with your booze. It's like,
PJ most concerned with the Trumpster getting a hold of the nuclear codes.
That was hilarious. I loved it.
The guy is hilarious. He's been around for 100 years, and he's just funny as heck. But I think what I think's what you and I've talked about the humor in the past quite a bit, but a large part of what makes humor funny is an element of truth, right?
Yes.
The irony or whatever. But that's why this is so funny, because when he says she's wrong about absolutely everything, but within normal parameters. I mean, come on. And so there's a lot of people, I guess, that are feeling like that. And he represents at least some of them. So love that. That was pretty good. This one is humorous as well. We don't have a clip, unfortunately, because he wasn't. I'm not sure mic'd, but you know who Mark Cuban is.
Yes, I do.
You do. He's the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, billionaire. Went to Indiana University, by the way.
Yes.
IU here in Bloomington. I think we talked about that before, didn't we?
We did. Mm-hmm.
He moved to Texas and he wanted to watch IU basketball games. And at the time, there wasn't any way for him to do that back in the day. So he's the guy that created, I forget the name, don't have the name of the company in front of me, but figured out how to do that and watch them on the computer. And then the rest is history. But so Mark Cuban Thursday was speaking at the Skybridge Alternatives Conference. It's called SALT in Vegas Thursday night, and he he was describing. He used an analogy to describe Donald Trump. He and Donald Trump have, and he admits it during this talk, that he and Donald Trump have a love-hate relationship. Okay, they've known each other for a long time. Mm-hmm. So Cuban says during this speech, and I wish I had it, but we don't have it. We don't have a clip of it. He goes, where is it? Okay, wait a minute. Hang on a minute. Okay. Somebody's gone in here and monkeyed with us. Okay, he goes, he says, quote, I have to be careful here. He goes, here's how he describes Donald. He goes, there's that guy who will walk into the bar and say anything to get laid. I have to say that part. That's Donald Trump right now to a T, but it's all of us who are going to get, what?
That's a good line. That's a good line.
Well,
I love it.
Particularly the first part. The guy that'll walk into the bar and say anything to get what he wants.
Yeah.
And does that or does that not encapsulate Donald Trump?
Totally.
He says later, everybody's got that friend that you just shake your head at. He's that guy who'd get drunk and fall all over, who'd get drunk and fall over all the time, or just say dumb crap all the time. But he's your friend, and he even offers up some advice to Hillary on selecting a vice presidential candidate. He says, I would get a vice presidential candidate who's someone like me who would just throw bombs at Donald. He said, and I would be like, Donald, I like you, we're friends, but you're a GD airhead. And he just goes on and on. But they're pals, supposedly. I don't see, Donald Trump doesn't take kindly to stuff like this.
Oh no, I'm sure we're gonna see some angry tweets in a little while.
Yeah, I don't think that's something that he doesn't miss anything. I don't know if he has
Like
folks
it doesn't
that
sleep.
comb the internet and look for stuff, but he doesn't seem to. If somebody says something about him, it eventually comes back at them, and so we'll see. But I love Mark Cuban. He's one of those guys that just doesn't care.
Yeah, Mark Cuban's pretty cool.
I love Mark Cuban. Do you ever watch Shark Tank?
Yes, I do. I think it's interesting. He's one of the more interesting sharks for sure.
He is. I like him. I mean, and I like the fact that he just doesn't care. He just doesn't care. So let's see here. I wanted to link to something else. Trump. Okay. So this big meeting yesterday between Trump and Paul Ryan, and then he talked to congressional leadership and stuff. So Ryan was getting skewered because he would not immediately endorse Trump. Remember a week or so ago, he said, well, I'm not ready to do that yet. And in fact, he didn't yesterday. And you had hacks like Sean Hannity skewering him. And, but my buddy Sarah Palin, you know how much I care for Sarah. We played her clip about why she would not be the ideal vice presidential candidate. Well, she had come out and said that Paul Ryan's political career is over. She was going to work to cantor him, referring to Eric Cantor, who was primaried when he was House Majority Leader. So the threats to bring Paul Ryan down. The primary in Wisconsin is next week, and Paul Ryan's hanging by a thread, Jessica. He's only up by 64 points over his over his primary opponent. So apparently Sarah Palin and the ilk is Look, say what you want about Paul Ryan. That dude's walking a tight wire because it's a balancing act. I mean, he has to, on one hand, think about at some point we have to come together. Can't be perceived as a shotgun wedding or just a pretend unification thing. But then on the other hand, it's Donald Trump, and if he goes down in flames, I go down in flames in 2020 or whatever my ambitions may be. So the guy's kind of between a rock and a hard place. But apparently this meeting yesterday went fine, and they will continue to. And they have no choice. I mean, it's in both of their best interests, the party and Trump, to come together. Trump says, well, if I don't really need him. He's got his boys running around saying I don't really need him. They do need him. They need the RNC. They need the $1 billion. They need the support. They need the infrastructure. They need each other, whether they like. Doesn't mean they have to kiss on the lips or go arm in arm, skipping down the trail, but they have to come together at some point. So, but there's plenty of time. There's plenty of time. Speaking of which, let's get out of here. We're within a minute or so, and take a break, and then you bring up my buddy Jennifer Burke, and then we'll start all over again. What do you think?
That works for me. Let's do the
Works
break.
for me as well. This is the Mike Miller Show, you guys. We will be right back. Don't go away.
Doug, I never thought I could go back to school, but when it's this easy, it fits.
I'm right there with you, Jackie, taking classes, watching lectures in the living room on the iPad. It's not hard.
I can be a mom, make dinner, get my classwork done, and not miss a moment with my family. It's amazing.
Yes, it is.
Hey, it's Jackie Velasquez, and if Doug and I can do this, you can do this too. Higher education with Liberty University Online.
Find out more about completing your college degree at the world's largest Christian university, Liberty University. Get all the details right now. Grab your cell and dial pound 250. When prompted, say the keyword Liberty University.
Training champions for Christ since 1971, Liberty University Online. Find out more about learning online. Dial pound 250, then say the keyword Liberty University.
Liberty University Online with hundreds of degree programs to choose from. Call now, pound 250. Say the keyword Liberty University.
That's pound 250. Say keyword Liberty University.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Doug, I never thought I could go back to school, but when it's this easy, it fits.
I'm right there with you, Jackie, taking classes, watching lectures in the living room on the iPad. It's not hard.
I can be a mom, make dinner, get my classwork done, and not miss a moment with my family. It's amazing.
Yes, it is.
Hey, it's Jackie Velasquez, and if Doug and I can do this, you can do this too. Higher education with Liberty University Online.
Find out more about completing your college degree at the world's largest Christian university, Liberty University. Get all the details right now. Grab your cell and dial pound 250. When prompted, say the keyword Liberty University.
Training champions for Christ since 1971, Liberty University Online. Find out more about learning online. Dial pound 250, then say the keyword Liberty University.
Liberty University Online with hundreds of degree programs to choose from. Call now, pound 250. Say the keyword Liberty University.
That's pound 250. Say keyword Liberty University.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Joining us, as promised, is a good friend of mine. I consider her to be Jennifer Burke, as I said at the top of the hour, co-founder, editor-in-chief at The Politistic, and co-founder at The Liberty Daily. Jennifer Burke, how are you today?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm a little bit fired up, as I'm sure you are as well. These are troubling times for people like you and I.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I was going to start with, it's been a while. I mean, because I took obviously a bit of a hiatus from doing a show, but I think the last time I had you on my show, the primaries hadn't even started. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I think. I could be
wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, but so we got a lot of stuff to talk about there. Lots of water over the dam, under the bridge. But I want to talk first, if we can, about this. We talked about it at the top of the show, but this let's don't call it a directive, but this threat from the Obama administration, this letter that went out to every public school system in the country today, in effect saying, if you don't let little boys go into little girls' rooms at their heart's desire, then you may be subject to lawsuits and or loss of federal aid. What do you think about that whole thing?
I think it's horrible, and I think it's a clear example, one of the best examples possible of how the states need to stop allowing the federal government to bribe them with their own money. People, with the tax system, the way it works, people are forced to give the federal government a large percentage of for some of their income, only for the states then have to grovel to try to get it back or have it dangled in front of them like a carrot, saying, look, you'll get this money back as long as you do what we tell you to do. So if there was ever a reason that the IRS should be abolished and a simpler tax system put into place so that the federal government does not take so much, then I don't know what else is.
Yeah, and just backing up, from a higher level or whatever, just the whole idea of it. I mean, to me, and I said this earlier, same story but different. This to me makes the North Carolina situation pale in comparison, because now we're messing with people's kids and families, and you can't even send your child to public school. I mean, theoretically with this, and not worry if your little girl is going to have, some curious little junior high kids walk into the bathroom and check her out.
Right. I mean, you saw the story. Target, a guy went into Target after Target's, policy that has cost them over a million customers, and their stock has plummeted. Went to the manager and said, you know what, I feel more comfortable in the women's bathroom. I just don't feel comfortable in the men's. Is it okay if I go into the women's? And the manager told him, sure. And if a woman has a problem with you being in there, you tell them to come take it up with me. And then we just recently had the Gestapo, as we call them, go to Disney and say, look, we think it's high time there is a transgender or a lesbian or some homosexual character in Disney. If parents don't want their kids to be exposed to that, or teaching them one thing about that it's not part of, just natural order of life or whatever, forget that. They want Disney to force it, because you know how kids feel about Disney. You have Disney on Ice, you have this Disney movie, and they want it to be part. It is so trying to force it to be part of mainstream life. It is, all these things just coming down at once. And that story came out about Disney, and then the next day or two is when Obama came down with this royal edict or directive threatening school districts across the United States. The whole thing is just sick. And I said in an article that I wrote earlier, I'm sorry, I was a teacher for 12 years.
No,
I'm really worked up over this.
I want you to ramble or rant, because that's what I did at the top. And I really want to hear what you have to say, because I know you were a teacher, sure.
But it's like the left doing Satan's work. Satan is he's the master of deception. He's the master of lies. And it really is troubling, the path that they are taking society. Really is troubling. And I find it hard to believe that every single person who somehow believes that they're a woman when they're not. I mean, I don't even understand this whole gender fluidity. Gender is not fluid. You're one of two things. You're a man or you're a woman, period. I mean, that's it. But they've so perverted the minds of the youth. I don't know if you saw the video, University of Washington, an area that I used to live in, students talking about how gender is a societal construct. No, it is not a societal construct. And the very group of people on the left who wants to push the man-made global warming, because man is greater than God in their eyes, and tell us that we're denying science, even though there are thousands of scientists that disagree, want to say that there's nothing scientific about gender, that it's fluid, and there's more than one gender in some people's eyes. It just makes no sense. It's Looney Tunes.
It's complete Looney Tunes. I put up first of all, we used to be at IJR back, when the Duck Dynasty thing was like, you couldn't go anywhere without seeing Duck Dynasty products and everything. I mean, we put up way too many Duck Dynasty posts. In fact, I told some of the folks, quit doing so much Duck. And then, of course, when Sadie went on Dancing with the Stars, it started all over again. But anyway, so I saw this story from, it's Phil Robertson, 2-3 days ago. And I put up on IJR what he said. And this thing's at, like, I'm looking at it now because I wanted the quote, is like 317,000 views. So apparently people still care what Phil Robertson thinks. But here he says, he's in an email to conservatives. He's working, they're doing a joint effort with Citizens United called Speak Freely. And it's about freedom of religion, freedom of faith. But he says, part of the email, he says, this is Phil Robertson from Duck Commander, and I've got a radical idea. Men should use the men's bathrooms and women should use the women's bathrooms. Here's the best part. Just because a man may, quote, feel like a woman doesn't mean he should be able to share a bathroom with my daughter or yours. That used to be called common sense. Now it's called bigoted.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly right.
Right, and we've seen. I mean, for example, with Target, and a lot of stores, they have what they call a family restroom. It's an individual stall. A mother or father, if they're in there with their kids, can bring their kids. That's not good enough apparently anymore. Now, for a very small, negligible percent of the population, now every single parent is going to be forced to have their child be in a restroom with someone of a different gender. And beyond that, Mike, even showering. I mean, an anatomical male who says, you know what, I think I'm a girl. I really feel like I'm a girl today, can go and shower in the girl showers.
Sure.
Or a girl that's still an anatomical girl could go and shower in the boy showers, even those showers that are just one big open shower with everyone standing around. And in Houston, which is where I'm from, when they tried to force that upon the city, the interesting thing when the city revolted and fought back, it wasn't that, and this was an interesting part, that how the pastors fought back. Even though the Houston's first homosexual mayor, Anise Parker, tried to subpoena their sermons. I mean, it was just out of control what she was doing. But the really interesting part of that was that ordinance that they try to force upon people under the name hero, like there's something heroic about a guy dressing up in a wig, was shut down in districts that are highly Democrat, that Obama won back in 2008 and 2012. They are the ones that voted it down in the city of Houston. But then now, those same people are going to have their kids be subjected to this ridiculousness. And Obama has like the Texas Governor Greg Abbott said, he's not a king. He has no authority to do this whatsoever. And Texas has said, we're fighting back. You don't have the power to pervert the civil rights law, which is what he's doing, and you're not a king. You can't do this anyway. And I hope they stand
keep your
strong.
30 pieces of silver. I love that.
Yep.
Texas is standing tall.
They are. A school superintendent said that letter's going to end up in the paper shredder. He said, I have 5 daughters, and I'm responsible for 2,500 girls in my district. Their parents rely on me to keep their daughters safe, and this is not happening.
I put up this morning, we wanted to get the story just generally about the letter and what it said and what Title IX is about and everything. So I put that post up first on IJR, and it took off. And then Joe Pertico put one up about the comments from the governor, the lieutenant governor. I've got a place for that letter when it comes. I forget what the headline said. And then that rocketed even more. So, yeah. If you read into this too, I mean, we talked a little bit about it, but this whole Title IX, and it's kind of addressed in this letter. But this part that, and again, I read this earlier, but there is no obligation for a student to present a specific medical diagnosis or identification document, fine, that reflect his or her gender identity and equal access. This is a part that, again, drives people like you and I crazy. People, I think, with morals and values. That equal access must be given to transgender students, even in instances when it makes others uncomfortable. And let's take that to the shower, to the locker room.
Right. Remember, I forget which state it was. I forget which state it was. I want to say it was some southern state where there was a boy who, grew his hair long, and he still looked like a boy though. I mean, he looked exactly like a boy except for having long hair. But he said he was a girl, so the district tried to do their best to accommodate him. And they initially they gave him an area where he could change and shower. He didn't have to be in the boys' locker room. That wasn't enough. So they were like, okay, if your friends want to share this area with you, that's fine. But we're not going to subject every single girl in the school who would not be comfortable with that to your presence in the most private of their areas in the school, the locker room. So that was going on for a while, and then apparently someone caught, I don't know if it was his family or someone else that caught wind of it, and that wasn't good enough.
No, you can't even have you can't have a transgender bathroom and then a girls' and a boys' bathroom.
Right. It was, it was demeaning to him, and so the Obama regime stepped in and said, no, you have to allow him in the girls' locker room. And the superintendent said, no, we're not going to do that. This is where, this push has been happening for a while. So I guess Obama decided, you know what, I'll just put an end to all this pushback and I'll just make it nationwide. And how long before it's not just in schools, but how long before he tries to tell private businesses they have to do so as well, otherwise they're discriminating.
And how long before it goes into, he tries to force it into private schools?
Yep.
Instead of, it's the same thing we talked earlier, when the Supreme Court made same-sex marriage legal throughout the country, that wasn't good enough. Then they went to the churches, and we're going to force the churches to marry us if we want them to, or it's insane.
It really is. And when Obama started this last year of his presidency, we were wondering, what's he going to try to ram through now? Because he was Obamacare is falling apart, and that was supposed to be his legacy. Yeah, and despite everything else going on in the world, it's like he wants to leave this legacy of societal destruction and just the devil taking over the culture war. And so that's what we're seeing him do. I mean, we heard Susan Rice recently say that white people are a threat to national security because they all think alike. So we have too many whites, in our national security area. Yeah. We need different people because there's groupthink, and I'm just like, you just have to shake your head in disbelief with what actually is going on in society.
And she says it. I actually had that story up. Too often our national security workforce has been this is former Florida Senator Bob Graham, and she's referring to that, called white male and Yale. So we have too many white guys in the security apparatus of this country, and that causes groupthink. I mean, we need affirmative action here. I mean, Hillary is going to have it in her cabinet. She said there's going to be 50% women and 50. And you know what? If it's 100% women, God bless them. But let's pick the best people, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, that's what it should be. What we're fighting against. This is like a war on truth. If the government can force you to look at a man and say it's a woman or else, then what else do they have the power to do? I mean, we've said for a long time, you might not care about government, you might not care about laws, but you know what? Government cares about you. And because people were just, thinking, it doesn't affect me, whatever. What happens in Washington, it's so far away. I'm just going to live my life. Nothing affects me at all. But we can see that, it really does. And who actually is going to stand up to the tyranny that comes out of Washington? Are any other governors gonna stand with Greg Abbott?
I think so in this case, and I think that you mentioned tyranny, you mentioned control, and you mentioned Obamacare. I mean, let's tie those together. Obamacare is two things. First of all, it's the greatest wealth redistribution scheme in the history of the planet. Secondly, and probably firstly, it's about control. And what better way can a government control its citizenry than through its health care?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I heard a Democrat talking head yesterday disagree with the point that people have lost their doctors. I mean, he said that's not true. And it's just like, if they say it, it makes it true. I know a ton of people that have lost their doctors, either because their doctor left their practice because they couldn't deal with all the red tape, or because I know a couple that dropped their insurance. They're an older couple. They're probably in their late 60s or so, just the two of them. All their children are grown. They ended up dropping their insurance because their premium or the cost for their insurance every month was going to be $5,000. And on top of that, there was going to be an $11,000 deductible.
Sure.
Like, we can't afford this. And
well, you remember Kirsten Powers a couple of years ago? Kirsten Powers was a huge Obamacare fan. And then she got her notice in the mail, and her tune changed overnight. A Democratic strategist. So, yeah.
Well, I don't understand how she's a Democrat. You listen to her, and she actually sounds, reasonable, and has a lot of conservative opinions, and is very, very pro-life, which you rarely find any Democrat as being. So yeah, that's a whole nother story. But we really have to stay on top of these things because we live in scary times.
We live in very scary times. Speaking of Kirsten Powers, I cannot even, with the exception of The Five and Special Report, I cannot and an occasional O'Reilly, I cannot watch Fox News, or as I call it, Trump News Network anymore.
I can't believe you can watch the 5.
Well, I know, but I kind of like the way that the irreverence and Eric Bolling's an idiot, and
yes,
but no, I just it's just man, have I lost respect, and they have lost millions of viewers. I
yes,
think.
they had to. I know a ton of people that no longer. We rarely watch Fox anymore. We'll watch if we hear that there's someone that's going to be on a show that we want to see. Otherwise, we find ourselves watching CNN. Which Anderson Cooper, believe it or not, Matthew, my husband and I have talked, we much prefer to watch Anderson Cooper over Sean Hannity.
I can't even stand looking at Sean Hannity anymore.
Anderson Cooper actually does a really good job. He's not like a Chris Matthews.
No, so does
type.
Jake Tapper.
He's actually
Jake
very,
Tapper
very good. And then we watch Newsmax. We don't get One America where we are, but we'll watch Newsmax. Otherwise, we'll watch, and then we wait for Levin TV to come on in the evening.
I was this morning, and I cannot, I call it Fox and Friends and Trump. I cannot watch that at all. But I had even the CNN morning program on this morning in the background while I was writing, and it was refreshing compared to the cheerleading nonsense that goes on. So obviously that transitions into where we find ourselves versus when we last talked. I don't know. I know you read some stuff that I post because every once in a while I see that that you've liked it or whatever. But I was just getting hammered last night because I had the audacity to suggest, okay, it's over. I mean, I was an avid Cruz guy, still am, endorsed him, support him. Where do you come down on this lesser of two evils thing? On do you set out? Do you where do you talk to me about that?
Well, this is what I was telling someone yesterday. I've spent the last 7 years of my life telling people you don't vote for someone based upon what letter they decided to put next to their name when they decided to run for office. Correct. You have to know where they stand. Period. I mean, you have to know that. And at this point in time, I don't see Donald Trump getting any better. We've seen him flip-flop. I mean, I wrote article after article after article within 36 hours of Ted Cruz suspending his campaign of Donald Trump's flip-flops on some of his major things he used in his campaign. Sure. He doesn't like his own tax plan anymore. He said, yes, let's raise the federal minimum wage after 10 months of demonizing Goldman Sachs and saying that Ted Cruz was owned by them because his wife's a financial advisor with them. And all of a sudden he hires a 17-year partner who also worked for George Soros. Right. And then you had the Muslim ban. Oh, that was just a suggestion. I was like, I got to the point at the end of my articles. I was like, now about that wall, the cornerstone of his campaign, the wall, the thing that I heard over and over and over and over again. He's going to he's the only one that talked about the wall, which wasn't true. Ted Cruz had been talking about the wall years before it entered Donald Trump's mind. It begs the question, what's in that New York Times
That's exactly right.
tape that Donald Trump refuses to give the okay to release. And then all of a sudden yesterday, or I don't know if it was late yesterday or early today, he said everything's a suggestion.
Yeah.
Everything's a suggestion.
Did you see? Go ahead.
No, so I don't see how he can be trusted. You don't know what in the world the man's going to do because he has very similar progressive tendencies as Hillary and Bernie Sanders. And at the same time, he also has that thirst for power and wealth that Hillary Clinton has. So I really don't see a huge difference between the two of them other than he has an R next to his name, and he could easily run with a D next to his name.
Did you, you mentioned his flip-flops and so forth. Did you happen to see, and I think I posted this as well, but his discussion last Sunday with Steffi Stephanopoulos on his tax plan?
That he wasn't in love with it. It was the starting point. Everything's negotiable.
It was ridiculous. He said, well, you said they were going to go down. Well, yeah, in my plan, they're going to go down, but after we negotiate, they're going to go up. Yeah. Even if that were the case, you got to have Pelosi and Reid and people just laughing their butts off at this stuff because, and that thing was revealing more ways than one. To me, he cannot think like someone who understands governing. He thinks like a businessman, which has been right. Well, that's why we need him in there. He looks at everything as a deal to be negotiated. And it's if I meet in the middle, it has nothing to do with conviction. It has nothing to do with any strong ideology. He makes stuff up as he goes. He contradicts himself all the time.
Constantly.
By Sunday night, he's saying, well, I didn't mean the taxes on the wealthy were going to go up. I meant they are going to go up from as low as they are in my initial plan. He just makes stuff up as he goes.
Right. Well, even when he was saying that taxes were going to go up, I looked at his Twitter account, and on his Twitter account, he said, the media and Hillary Clinton are saying that I'm going to raise taxes. Not true. And I'm like, yes, it is true. You just said. I actually heard you say it. But, some of his people who only check his Twitter feed will believe him.
Even if they do that. Right? Even if they bother to check his Twitter feed. I mean, most of them, they're just looking at him on TV, in between bowling frames. I mean, it's just, well, that wasn't nice.
Well, and they don't, I had some women say, I really hope, he stands by the things that he campaigned on. That's what I trusted him. I was like, well, be prepared to be disappointed because he just said that it was all just a suggestion, and she responded that, she really hoped, that he didn't abandon them. And I'm like, well, you can hope all you want. But I think a lot of people need to be prepared for disappointment because a lot of the things that they've touted, about him, I mean, he said it's just untrue. He actually said in January, Mike, and I don't think this got as much play as it should have, that he was going to be more establishment when he got into office so he could make deals with the Democrats. And it's just the whole thing is just so mind-boggling after 7.5 years of going through what we've gone through, and to have Ted Cruz, the one person in D.C. that stood up to the corruption in Washington, D.C., be labeled by Donald Trump as Lying Ted and these idiots who believed it. I actually had someone who say, well, if he fought as hard for us then as he did when he was a senator as he is now, I'm like, are you out of your mind?
They don't care. Yeah. I know we're getting kind of down to close to the wire, but the one area that that does disturb me is there are things we know about Hillary, and there's probably more that we really don't know about Trump, but it's Supreme Court justice nominations. We know, I think with a high degree of confidence, the kind of common thread of anyone that Hillary would nominate to the court. Trump says, and again, his words are worth as you described them. Yeah. But, he's going to release this list and so forth. But does it make sense, at least as it relates to the Supreme Court, to roll the dice with the Donald versus knowing what you're going to get relative to the Supreme Court with Hillary Clinton?
I don't think so, because Donald Trump can't be taken at his word. I mean, he really can't. You can't believe a word that he says. And truthfully, what I perceive, and I was telling Matthew this the other day, I was like, if Donald Trump were in the White House, it's like I could envision it being like the mob running the White House. Yeah. I mean, that's how the people around him behave. And I don't trust him. And I wrote an article. I don't know if you saw what Brad Thor wrote.
I did. I put it up. Yeah.
Yeah. But one of the things he said in his article when he talked about why he was never Trump, and you probably have seen this circulating before, a quote from Alexander Hamilton in 1800 when he said, if we must have an enemy at the head of government, let it be one whom we can oppose and for whom we are not responsible. Because what Donald Trump would do is he'd destroy not just the Republican Party, but conservatism, because you have these idiots that want to say he's a conservative when he is far from. He says constantly, I'm a conservative, but you're a conservative, but you're not, is the reality of it all.
That's exactly right.
And that's the problem with Donald Trump. He can say, here's my list, but you campaign on a tax plan that you have on your website is going to make America great again. And then the second your toughest competitor leaves the race, you scrap it and say, I'm not in love with it. It's done. Here, let's do this other thing that's actually going to raise taxes more. I don't. Then again, a lot of people don't. people just remember the Donald Trump from last summer. I'm going to build the wall. It's like that's all they're focused on. And that might get them in the office.
Well, I'm afraid it might. Limbaugh has always said, listen to someone long enough and they'll tell you exactly who they are. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. We're also about exactly out of time. I can't believe it. Every time I talk to you, like time flies. Tell us, tell the folks where to find you and the Politistic and stuff, because you guys write some excellent stuff. And when I say you guys, I'm referring to Jennifer and husband Matthew.
Thank you so much. And our other friend, very close friend, brother from another mother, Greg Campbell, who writes with us as well. You can find us at politistic.com, POLITI, stick.com. And know one thing, there are no sacred cows with Politistic. If you're a Republican, and you'll go against freedom, and you're siding with the progressives who are trying to destroy this country, we will call you out on it, because far too many people won't do that. And on Facebook, you can find us at facebook.com/politistic, POLITI stick, and on Twitter, twitter.com/thepolitistic, THEPOLITI stick.
An excellent site that should be read by all. Jennifer Burke, I appreciate you coming on. Say hello to Matthew, and
I will.
I got to have that guy on pretty soon as well.
Most definitely, my friend. Thanks so much.
You too. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We love us some Jennifer Burke.
I do love Jennifer.
Do you see some of the stuff she just on Facebook? I mean, she's pretty tactful and stuff. And she's not quite as crass as I can be, but sometimes she can. So, and I say that in admiration. So, I guess we got to kick it out of here. That was a fun show, huh?
Yes, it was. I think we did great.
I'm sure we'll have lots of material on Monday because stuff will be said by some of our favorite people to follow on talk shows. And I think this public school thing is going to continue to blow up. So anyway, you guys, thanks for listening. We appreciate it. We being Jessica and I. Have a great weekend. This is the Mike Miller Show. We'll see you Monday.
Say goodbye to the city. I think it's time to get away.